Pokémon Legends Arceus is regarded as one of the more challenging games in the series, but what if we make it even harder? Can I complete the entire game without taking a single point of damage? Not in battle, not in the overworld, whatever it is, I gotta avoid it. The rules were simple. And so, all we had to do now was choose a starter. The main method to not take damage is simply to one-shot absolutely everything. And to do that, you primarily just have to brutally outlevel your opponents. But that's hard to do early game when all you have is a puny little baby. So we need something that at least has a slight advantage over the majority of the early game opponents, which are mainly bug and normal type. So after some research, I decided to go with part flying type Rowlet, since I'll be able to one-shot my way through low-level Wurmple for safe XP. Plus, an immunity to ground types will probably come in handy. So once I arrived in the Obsidian Fieldlands, the challenge officially began. And already, danger was all around me. I took advantage of the catching Pokemon unaware mechanic to safely chip away at Wurmple for experience. And that was fine until I got overconfident and went after a Beautifly. And another time, after grinding Rowlet all the way to level 9, a random Shinx headbutts us out of nowhere. But after 8 long resets, I finally reached level 16, meaning I felt confident enough to take on the first real battle against a Pikachu. And already I struggled way more than I thought I would. So I gotta do it all over again. I grab my Rowlet, beat up dozens of Wurmple, and finally get to the Pikachu battle. After some research, I realized that Pikachu has just 3 moves. This means it's likely random which move Pikachu picks, since it can't one-shot anyway. To my knowledge at this point, Pikachu always gets a free hit right off the bat. So 1, I need to hope it's Thunder Wave. 2, I need to then not get fully paralyzed. And 3, I need to one-shot it. This is what I found to be the only way to get past this battle. Pure luck. This time, we had a level 18 Dartrix to ensure a one-shot. The battle begins, and Pikachu starts off and hits us with a Thunder Wave. Great. So far, so good. But then, we get fully paralyzed and can't move. Hours of progress down the drain. But there was no other way. I chose a starter, farmed XP, and got to the fight again, but kept getting poor RNG, resetting and repeating the entire thing. Until try number 15. We go into the battle with Dartrix as usual. Pikachu goes for Thunder Wave. Great. And Dartrix doesn't get fully paralyzed. Just like that, we can land a strong style hit and finally take down Pikachu. By the way, this was just supposed to be a tutorial battle. Our next target is Alpha Kricketune, our first alpha battle. We had dodged some incredibly close calls, rampaging Pokemon nearly catching us off guard, and some insane luck with a Munchlax's missing rollout. But we managed to make our way to Kricketune unscathed and at level 26, when I come to a horrible realization. Alpha Pokemon get stat boosts, like boosted speed, which in this case means Kricketune outspeeds us, and that resets us back to killing a heap of Wurmple. Luckily, I did progress quicker this time thanks to some better RNG. Now, to beat Kricketune, I needed more speed than Dartrix could offer, and leveling up Dartrix even further was getting extremely slow. So I decided to go back and pick up a Starly. It was weak at first to the point where even Wurmple posed a threat, but that's when I discovered you can gain XP by smashing rocks. I used that to inch Starly's level up until it could one-shot Wurmple. From there, it was back to good old XP grinding, until I had a Staraptor with enough speed to move first and take out Alpha Kricketune. Phew, that's over. Great. What's next? Noble Kleavor wasn't just a normal one-on-one battle. We also had to dodge attacks and throw balls. On top of that, I still needed a reliable way to one-shot it in the actual Pokemon fight. I wasn't sure the current team would be a good matchup, so I decided to add a Weasel. And after more XP farming, we had a Floatzel on the squad, which easily one-shot Kleavor. Kleavor's charge attacks were fairly easy to dodge, but an unexpected ground pound caught me completely off guard. And we were so close to beating it too. At this point, it was clear the challenge had become extremely extremely grindy. So I introduced a new rule. Every time I unlock a new area, I can make a checkpoint where we could save the game. If I took damage, I'd still have to reset to that checkpoint, but I wouldn't be forced to replay the entire grindy early game 100 times. So with that, we beat Pikachu, got past Alpha Kricketune, and finally made it back to Kleavor. This time, I played it extremely safe and slow, gradually wearing it down. And finally, we managed to beat Noble Kleavor without taking damage, which meant I could move on to the Crimson Mirelands and mark my very first checkpoint. This checkpoint immediately proved its worth, because the difficulty spike in Crimson Mirelands caught me completely off guard. Right away, the game threw me against a level 23 Toxicroak, and it didn't go well. So we reset to the checkpoint, and by the way, I forgot fall damage was a thing. So yeah, that's another reset. But after properly leveling up my Pokemon, we took on the fight again, and this time, Staraptor's fast enough to go first and one-shot. And with that hurdle cleared, our next big challenge was Ursaluna. I do some research, and what I am worried about is that Ursaluna actually has very solid defense and HP stats. But according to my calculations, Staraptors should most likely be able to take it out. I press close combat, and after sitting through the whole strong style and close combat animation, I take it out in one shot. And now, finally, I'll have to battle Noble Lilligant. What made this battle super interesting was the various attacks and moves I had to dodge. I had to time my dodges just right and jump over shockwaves, and let me tell you, I was sweating balls while doing so. One mistimed dodge, and that sucks. This set me back hours due to having to level up my team again. But we made it back to Lilligant, and this time I was laser focused, timing every dodge perfectly and spamming balls whenever I saw an opening. And finally, Lilligant went down, and since we now progress to Cobalt Coastlands, I finally get to save my progress again. We headed over to Iscan, who asked the same thing I asked myself when I initially thought, can I beat this game without taking damage? You really want to know? You really don't value your own life, do you? Once we get access to Basculegion, we can again grind our level up and head over to Firespit Island, because there awaits a battle I severely underestimated when planning this challenge: Noble Arcanine. As I'm preparing for this battle, looking through Bulbapedia, I stumbled upon a line that sent chills down my spine. Arcanine will then create 5 fireballs above him, signaling a large explosion that cannot be dodged. So, not only did I have to dodge massive fire shockwaves, there's also a huge unavoidable explosion that can only be prevented if I can throw bombs fast enough. And by the way, I suck at button mashing games. Like, I'm worse than an 80-year-old with arthritis, so this is not great for me. The first time around, I get hit by a simple charge attack. Alright, just an experience on my end. I reset, grind my level up, and try again. We got to the battle part of the fight, and I had calculated that even a regular Aqua Jet should take out Arcanine. So surely a strong style one will too. Right. So we reset, grind XP, try again, and get hit by a fire shockwave. Then, on attempt number 4, something finally clicked.
I understand it now.
I made sure to stay far away from all attacks, playing it super safe. And then, finally, it happened. Fireballs appeared above Arcanine's head, signaling the explosion. I mashed the ball button like my life depended on it, and we managed to cancel the attack. But it's not over yet though. Now I had to win the Pokemon battle. Floatzel's strong style Aqua Tail, a risky 90% accurate move, connects, and thankfully it was enough to secure a one-shot. In the final stages of the fight, Arcanine creates a fire circle that traps me into 1/4 of the arena. I'm worried he'll move to the other side where I can't reach him and start going for the explosion attack. So I risk it and go on the offense, spam bombs wherever I can, and finally... And with that win, I made it to the Coronet Highlands, setting another checkpoint. And right off the bat, we ran into a major issue that honestly could end this whole run. We're fighting against the first trainer with 3 Pokemon on their team. Before, we could just one-shot our way through battles, but from this moment forward, that becomes impossible. I go into this fight with an insanely over-leveled Staraptor with tons of effort values invested in speed, while also using Agile Style to take out Machoke. My thought here is that this will then let me continue moving first once the next Pokemon is out. However, when Tangela comes out, for some reason it still gets to move first. Luckily, it hits us with a Stun Spore, which is annoying, but we haven't taken damage. Next, Gliscor comes out, and I again expect to move first due to having used an Agile Style move and having high speed, but no. Gliscor gets to attack first, and twice in a row. First a quick attack and then a poison jab. Now, I figured maybe the paralysis let Gliscor move before me, and that's why I didn't get a chance to move once a Pokemon switched in. So I reset and reevaluated my strategy. My first instinct was to use a Cherry Berry, but held items aren't a thing in this game. So I then think maybe I can use Decidueye instead, who is immune to Stun Spore but would hopefully bait Tangela into using it anyway. So with a fast and leveled up Decidueye, we're able to take out Machoke. But now, Ingo sends in Gliscor instead of Tangela. Unexpected, but should still be fine because we're definitely faster, so turns out the battle mechanics in this game are set up in a very unfair way, where once we take out the first Pokemon, the next one gets to move first no matter what. So is this where the run ends? How could we possibly get past a hurdle like this? No matter how high level, how fast, or what type our Pokemon is, if the opposing Pokemon gets to move first, there's nothing we can do. After scouring the internet for answers, I discovered something interesting. Apparently, evasion strats had been buffed a lot in this game, and were considered almost OP by a lot of players. So, with nothing else left to try, I decide to get a Goomy that later gets access to the move Shelter, which obscures the user for 4 turns, making incoming moves more likely to miss. Thanks to the XP share, Alpha Pokemon, and EXP Candy, we managed to bring Goodra up to a high level and finally re-attempted the battle. Now, we are betting quite a lot on a strategy that is incredibly risky, but I had no other choice. We hit Shelter, and it works. Machoke misses a Rock Smash, and we can take out Machoke with a single Dragon Pulse. Gliscor comes in and tries to hit us with a Mud Bomb, but once again, he misses. A single Hydro Pump takes out Gliscor. But now, Shelter wears off, meaning we're not obscured anymore. And Ingo is down to his last Pokemon. So this is it. We failed. Except somehow, for whatever reason, this time, Tangela does not get to go first upon switching in. I have no idea how these mechanics work. All I know is they're incredibly flawed. But this means we can finish off Tangela, and just like that, we get past Ingo without taking damage, and the run is safe. But we are so not out of the woods yet, because next, we have to take on Noble Electrode, and this battle is brutal. It really is a major problem because it summons homing orbs that will chase you throughout the whole battle, and there's absolutely no way to stop them, making it very hard to land a hit at all. Going into this battle, I knew I had to play it extremely safe, because if not, we would lose all that progress we made with Goodra. So there was a lot at stake here. No pressure. I had to be on the move almost at all times, and whenever I got a tiny window to throw a bomb, I took it. Electrode occasionally went for a huge explosion attack, and once he executed it, we had a small window where the homing orbs disappeared, and we could get off a couple safe hits. We were getting close to taking it out, when the attacks got even more intense, and we got out of the way from some attacks with microseconds to spare. Almost 10 minutes of pure anxiety later, this happened. I have no idea how I did this. So many close calls, so much could have gone wrong, but thankfully we can now save. Oh, come on! So, before we can get to the Alabaster Icelands and mark our next checkpoint, Akari wants to have a friendly little fight. Haha, yeah, just a friendly little fight. Do you know how much is at stake, you little shit? So, I do the only thing I can think to do and opt for the Gudra Shelter strat. Akari's Mr. Mime uses Iron Defense, which is great news for us since we can easily take it out on the next turn. Next out is Staravia, who goes for Brave Bird, and thankfully it misses. So finally, Akari sends out her Pikachu, goes for Iron Tail, and it misses. We somehow survived Akari, no damage taken. We either got so lucky there, or maybe evasion strats are just genuinely broken in this game. Either way, it became clear that evasion strats are the only way to go from here on out. Now 3 other moves apply this status: Mud Bomb, Mud Slap, and Octazooka. The value of being able to one-shot an opponent and simultaneously apply the status could be huge. So I decide to add an Octillery with Octazooka to the squad. I also go back and add a Croagunk to the team because of Mud Bomb. And with that, we finally make it to Alabaster Icelands, marking our final checkpoint. And this is where things get really interesting. Our first hurdle in Alabaster Icelands was battling Sabi, taking on a Rhyperior, Electivire, and Magmortar all at once. I've dealt with 2-on-1s before and managed just fine, but 3 is harder than 2. I do the only thing I can do and use Octazooka to take out Rhyperior and set up Obscurity. Electivire thankfully just goes for Thunder Wave and misses anyway. Magmortar also misses a Poison Gas, so we can take out Magmortar on the next turn. Electivire finally connects with a Thunder Wave, but we don't get fully paralyzed, so a strong style Mud Bomb secures the win. Next up was a massive hurdle. Literally. Noble Avalugg. I did a few test runs on my main character, learned the attack patterns, and challenged Avalugg. This fight put me on a tiny platform with little space to move around, and I had to dodge over ice beams, spikes, and homing ice missiles. By the way, I realized a while back that sending in a Pokemon to fight is an unnecessary risk, and you don't even need to do that to clear these battles. So after dodging like a maniac, we finally quelled the 4th and final Noble. With that behind us, I thought I'd add a Hisuian Zorua to the team. Triple type immunity plus glass cannon stats is something that I cannot pass up for this challenge. After brute forcing our way through the lake challenges, we had a huge hurdle ahead of us: Benny and Kamado. Both had 4 Pokemon on their team, and after experimenting with strategies on my main account, I realized obscure stats were far too risky. So how in the world are we gonna make this work? Well, Benny's team happens to be very weak to the ghost type, so I wanted to see if I could make it work using Zoroark. And turns out there was another way. By using agile style priority moves like Shadow Sneak to finish off Pokemon, we got an extra turn to move once the next Pokemon switched in. This changes everything. Save switching into immune Pokemon, not having to rely on pure luck anymore. Groundbreaking. So I decided to lean into this strategy and catch a Lucario who has access to both Mach and Bullet Punch, as well as a Sneasel with Ice Shard and Quick Attack. And with that, I took on Benny. Agile style Shadow Sneak takes care of Mismagius and lets us keep moving against Gardevoir. We keep hitting Gardevoir with agile style Shadow Sneaks, and Benny just doesn't get to move. Gallade also went down, and so we could finish off the fight with a strong style extrasensory taking out Sneasler. This strategy was an absolute game changer, but could it work against Kamado, whose team had more varied typings? Well, we dealt just fine against Braviary. Snorlax is immune to Shadow Sneak though, so I had to take a different approach. I sent in Lucario, and what do you know? We still get to move first. Lucario can take out Snorlax with a couple Mach Punches, and Clefable with a couple Bullet Punches, all while Kamado's team don't get to move even once. Finally, we weaken Golem with a Bullet Punch just to safely take him out with a close combat immediately after. Until this point, I honestly saw no real way to beat the final boss Volo, but now we actually had a working and reliable strategy. We might even stand a chance. Next up was catching Dialga. You're forced to catch it. If you kill it, you have to restart the fight. Luckily, the catch rate is very high, so after a safe Mach Punch for good measure, I threw an Ultra Ball and caught Dialga first try. Dialga down, Palkia to go. This fight was like a noble fight, and a surprisingly manageable one. We dodged meteors, jumped over shockwaves, and finally, Palkia goes down. And just like that, we've officially beaten Pokémon Legends Arceus without taking damage. Well, technically. I know what everybody's wondering. Could I beat what might be the single hardest Pokemon battle in franchise history? The battle against Volo and Giratina without ever taking damage? Well, there was only one way to find out. So I allowed myself one final checkpoint here and took on Volo. This is by far the biggest challenge of this run. Volo has a stacked team of 6 competitive Pokemon, and on top of that, a Giratina who gets an instant Omni Boost. And if that wasn't enough, after beating it once, it returns even stronger for round 2. Heading into this, I was 99% sure my run was about to end right here. But turns out, our original strategy worked well for the first stage of the fight. Having grinded my team to level 100, we were much faster than Volo's team and could deal serious damage. Weavile and Lucario alone countered his entire team perfectly. And since we were so fast, we could smoothly pivot in and out using agile-style priority moves to prevent Volo from ever getting a chance to attack. Using Ice Shard, Weavile 2-shots Volo's ace, Garchomp, and from there, we just keep spamming Ice Shard, which takes out the remaining Togekiss and Roserade. Meaning, we've beaten Volo's whole base team without giving him a single turn to move. So that's the first stage of the battle complete. But trust me, this was the easy part. Next up is the Giratina fight, and thanks to an instant Omni Boost, this thing becomes a nightmare. My initial strategy was to keep chipping away at Giratina using priority moves. Unfortunately, Giratina was way too bulky. Even at level 100, my attacks barely scratched it. This means we couldn't take it out without letting it attack at least once. So trying to predict an Aura Sphere, I pivot into Zoroark, who is immune to fighting type attacks. But turns out that pivoting doesn't work like usual, since Giratina goes for Dragon Claw instead, which tells me the AI likely gets to choose a move once Zoroark is already in battle. So we reset and hit the drawing board again. My next idea was to get a very fast and strong Pokemon like Origin Palkia to one-shot both stages of Giratina. This works perfectly for the first stage. We land a critical hit Spatial Rend that obliterates Giratina, but whether it's the Omni Boost that boosts Giratina's speed or just a built-in quirk, Giratina gets to move first once we reach the second stage despite maxed out speed stats on Palkia, and so we take damage. So yeah. Looks like there is no way to beat this fight without taking damage. Unless, maybe, we use evasion strats. There is a problem with that though. Giratina had Aura Sphere, which never misses, even if the target is obscured. But what if we use a ghost type like Zoroark combined with an Aux Evasion? This strategy could actually work. With no other options, I put all my trust into this incredibly risky play. Here's how it went. We immediately use Aux Evasion to obscure Zoroark, and it instantly paid off as Giratina misses a Dragon Claw. This lets us start chipping away at Giratina using Shadow Sneak, and we hit so many Shadow Sneaks in a row that we can actually take out Giratina before it gets the chance to move again. Now Giratina turns into its origin form, which means it gets a free attack at the start. It goes for Dragon Claw, and it misses! Now we can use a Shadow Sneak again, and then a Strong Style Shadow Ball, and just like that, we've officially beaten Pokemon Legends Arceus without ever taking a single point of damage. So what have we learned? Evasion Cheese is king, and I have way too much time on my hands. Subscribe!